Good evening and thank you for joining us. Britain has a new Prime Minister as the Labour Party swept to power in a landslide victory after 14 years of Conservative rule. Leader of the Labour Party and Britain's next Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has steered his party back to power in less than 5 years, when the party suffered its worst defeat in almost a century. Outgoing Prime Minister Rishi Sunak conceded defeat, saying the voters had delivered a sobering verdict. Tracy Furness has our top story.
We did it! You campaigned for it, you fought for it, you voted for it, and now it has arrived. Change begins now.
Sir Keir Starmer will now become Britain's next Prime Minister, taking charge of 10 Downing Street. The Labour Party had won 326 of the 650 seats by 5 a.m. Friday as counting continued. In a speech to supporters, Starmer acknowledged there will be a fight to regain people's trust, but said over the past 4.5 years they have been working hard.
This is what it is for. A changed Labour Party, ready to serve our country, ready to restore Britain to the service of working people. But a mandate like this comes with a great responsibility. Our task is nothing less than renewing the ideas that hold this country together. National renewal.
Outgoing Prime Minister Rishi Sunak arrived at a vote-counting centre in Richmond in North Yorkshire. Though Rishi himself held his seat, he took responsibility for the Conservative Party's defeat.
The Labour Party has won this general election, and I have called Sir Keir Starmer to congratulate him on his victory. Today, power will change hands in a peaceful and orderly manner, with goodwill on all sides. There is much to learn and reflect on, and I take responsibility for the loss.
Defence Secretary Grant Shapps, who served in the cabinet under 4 different prime ministers, lost his seat. The historic defeat for the Conservatives leaves the party depleted and in disarray and will likely spark a contest to replace Sunak as leader. Nigel Farage, the leader of the hard-right Reform Party, was elected to Parliament after 7 failed election attempts. Farage won the contest in the seaside town of Clacton-on-Sea. Partial results show the anti-immigration reform, successor to the Brexit Party, took votes from both Conservatives and Labour, and exit polls suggest his party is set to take 13 seats. Farage was not impressed with the Labour landslide, saying votes were simply anti-Conservative.
What is interesting is there's no enthusiasm for Labour, there's no enthusiasm for Starmer whatsoever. In fact, about half of the vote is simply an anti-Conservative vote. This Labour government will be in trouble very, very quickly.
The leader of Britain's third biggest party, the left-of-centre Liberal Democrats, Ed Davey, retained his parliamentary seat, with exit polls forecasting the Lib Dems taking 61 seats. Jeremy Corbyn, who led the Labour Party into the general elections of 2017 and 2019, won in North London. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has resigned outside his official residence, 10 Downing Street.
I will shortly be seeing His Majesty the King to offer my resignation as Prime Minister. To the country, I would like to say first and foremost, I am sorry. I have given this job my all, but you have sent a clear signal that the government of the United Kingdom must change, and yours is the only judgment that matters.
Soon after his resignation speech outside Number 10, Sunak journeyed to Buckingham Palace to offer his official resignation as Prime Minister to King Charles III. Crowds had gathered outside Buckingham Palace awaiting the arrival of Sunak and wife Akshata Murthy, who accompanied him to the palace. The UK's next Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, has been seen as dutiful, stable and even slightly dull. The 61-year-old has spent 4 years dragging Labour from the left to political middle ground. Nasri Karim takes a look at his career.
Keir Starmer has Labour in his blood and in his name. His parents named him after Keir Hardie, the founder of the Labour Party that Starmer was eventually to lead. Born in 1963, the new Prime Minister of Britain is the son of a toolmaker and a nurse, one of 4 children raised in a poor family outside London. His mother suffered from chronic disease, and his visits to see her in hospital forged his strong support for the state-funded National Health Service. He was the first member of his family to attend university at Leeds and then Oxford. He went on to practice human rights law before being appointed the government's Director of Public Prosecution. He was elected to Parliament in 2015, often at odds with then Labour leader and staunch socialist Jeremy Corbyn, eventually replacing him as party leader after successive election defeats in 2017 and 2019. He went about erasing Corbyn's fingerprints from the party, including what he believes was anti-Semitic sentiment, but which others say was merely support for Palestinian rights. A fervent anti-Brexiter, he said the Labour government would not seek to reverse it. He wants to focus on home issues such as easing the housing shortage, repair public services, including the NHS, while trying to avoid raising taxes and increasing public debt. Leading up to the election, he portrayed himself as a leader who wants to be of service to the ordinary folk.
All we ask now, humbly, is the opportunity to change our country and put it back in the service of working people.
And his election platform was built on a single word: change.
A plan to change Britain.
Some are comparing him to Tony Blair, also a lawyer who went to Oxford, who brought Labour back to power in 1997 after 18 years of Conservative rule. If there was one criticism on Starmer, it's what many believe to be his lack of charisma. But as one analyst says, after enduring the roller coaster of Boris Johnson and his illegal parties and Liz Truss's calamitous unfunded tax cuts, the public may find relief in a bit of boring. Nasri Karim, TVB News.
In Hong Kong, some analysts do not expect major shifts in Sino-British relations after the Labour Party took the helm in the UK. As for the British national overseas visa policy for Hong Kong residents, it's believed that the policy is here to stay because it can help the UK attract capital. Hong Kong resident Candy, who has lived in the UK for 4 years, voted for Labour in the general election. She was dissatisfied with the Conservative Party's inability to control inflation in recent years. Her monthly water bill has soared to 3,000 Hong Kong dollars. She hopes the new government will improve the economy and people's livelihood. But Candy said the Labour Party's immigration policy may pose uncertainties to aspiring migrants to the UK, as it stated that the overall level of migration should be managed, so immigrants won't compete for resources with locals. And that affects some Hong Kong people who wish to emigrate to the UK, Candy said. While the Labour Party did not explicitly state in its manifesto whether it would continue the BNO visa policy, it said it will support Hong Kong people in the UK and provide the same pathways of protection for Ukrainian, Syrian and other asylum seekers. An analyst expects that after the Labour Party takes power, it will not change its policy direction on Hong Kong issues. Wilson Chan, the director of research of a consultancy company specializing in international political economy and foreign policy, said most Hong Kong immigrants don't have great financial difficulty and their immigration can bring capital to the UK. With that, Chan believes the Labour Party won't be entirely dismissive of the BNO visa policy. On relations with China, the Labour Party said, with the challenges and opportunities that China brings to the UK, it is expecting both cooperation and competition with China down the road. Chen said the European Union has proposed to impose additional tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles. While the Labour Party may consider following suit, the UK will likely seek cooperation with China as well on the matters related to global warming and global governance. The first batch of 376 Hong Kong land leases, expiring before the end of 2030, will automatically be renewed for another 50 years. The new arrangement took effect today under the newly gazetted Extension of Government Leases Ordinance. The landlord will not need to pay the land premium, but will have to pay the government rent. The measure was hailed by the Real Estate Developers Association as it ensures stability in Hong Kong's property market and business environment. Two women were earlier arrested after they were suspected of kidnapping a 3-year-old boy in Cheongkwano. The boy has since been rescued by the police. Earlier today, the police brought one of the suspects to the crime scene for reenactment. Timothy Lee tells us more.
At around 11 this morning, authorities brought one of two female suspects suspected of kidnapping a 3-year-old boy in Cheongkwano to the crime scene at TKO Plaza. A Putonghua translator was provided for her. The woman was placed in handcuffs. She was first brought up to the second floor of the shopping mall where the boy was believed to have been snatched. The woman was told to carry a child-sized doll to reenact the kidnapping process and explain details to police officers. Authorities and the woman walked through a department store without stopping before leaving the shopping mall. The duration of their stay was around 10 minutes. Police prepared a stroller on Tongchun Street across TKO Plaza, which is believed to be the location where the boy was placed in the baby carriage. The 38-year-old suspect could be seen pushing the stroller to a nearby park and towards Shengteng Estate before returning to a hidden area in the park. The police investigation indicated the woman hid the child in a suitcase in this area. The woman stayed in the park for more than half an hour before police officers brought her back to a police vehicle 5 minutes later and headed towards the Wings, a private housing estate where the boy was suspected to have been hidden. The incident took place at around 4:30 p.m. on Wednesday when two people kidnapped a boy in TKO Plaza and left behind a note with their contact information for the boy's family members. The kidnappers texted the child's mother demanding a ransom of 660,000 tether in cryptocurrency, which is around $5 million. They also sent a picture of the boy sleeping. Police rescued the boy around 12 hours later inside a unit at the Wings in Cheongkwano and arrested two individuals on site. One of them was a mainland resident carrying a two-way permit. Preliminary investigations indicated the pair committed the crime because of financial problems. Sources said the two suspects did not know each other before and began working together to organize the kidnapping after becoming acquainted on social media. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
The Social Workers Registration Amendment Bill was gazetted today, with the government appointing 12 new members to the social workers' statutory body. The newly appointed members include lawyer Herman Hui as chairman, who hopes the amendment will help raise the professionalism of the social worker sector. Other members include Hong Kong Council of Social Service Business Director Grace Chan as deputy chairperson and HKU Health and Social Work Professor Amy Chow. The reformed statutory body will hold its first meeting in 2 weeks, when they will discuss methods on dealing with social workers who previously committed national security offenses. It will also establish a mechanism reviewing the conduct of its members. In the case involving 47 Democrats charged with subversion in 2021, activist Joshua Wong made his mitigation plea today. Wong said he believes that while he was an active participant and engaged in lobbying efforts in the U.S., such work had nothing to do with the case. Joshua Wong is among the third batch of defendants who pleaded guilty during mitigation proceedings. Other defendants include ex-lawmakers Jeremy Tam and Wu Chi-wai. Wu was also the former chairman of the Democratic Party. Wong's lawyer said while Wong had taken part in international lobbying work, the case this time concerned local matters. The panel of 3 designated judges meanwhile raised concerns over Wong's multiple criminal records. While the defense said these could be aggravating factors on sentencing, Wong has pleaded guilty, which should be the biggest mitigating factor. Welcome back. President Xi Jinping has arrived in the Tajik capital Dushanbe for a state visit after the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Astana summit. He vowed to draw a new blueprint for a stronger relationship between the two countries and inject new momentum into their respective growth. Danny Zhou has more.
President Xi Jinping received a warm welcome in Dushanbe on Thursday as he revisited the city after 5 years. Xi said in a signed article that he looks forward to opening up brighter prospects for the two countries' all-round cooperation. Upon Xi's arrival, Tajik President Emomali Rahmon greeted him with a hug and a grand welcome ceremony. More than 1,500 young Tajiks in traditional attire were at the airport to perform folk songs and dances. Over the past 32 years, the two countries' relations have developed into a comprehensive strategic partnership. Two-way trade between the countries reached a record high of nearly $4 billion last year. Xi noted that China has long been Tajikistan's largest source of investment and its major trading partner. During his visit, Xi will hold meetings with President Rahmon to discuss how best to further bolster their collaboration and stand up for common interests and those of other developing countries. The Tajik president said in an interview that their bilateral ties have entered a new historical stage in areas that include tourism, geological exploration, artificial intelligence, agro-products, green economy, and digital economy. Extolling the virtues of joint projects of the Belt and Road Initiative, Rahmon said, enhancing transport cooperation between China, Tajikistan, and other Central Asian nations under the Belt and Road framework is entirely mutually beneficial. China will import more Tajik premium produce and encourage more companies to pour investment into Tajikistan as a step to help modernize the country's industrial system. Danny Zhou, TVB News.
Beijing has expressed strong opposition against the EU's tariff hike on Chinese electric vehicles and will adopt necessary measures to firmly safeguard China's legitimate rights. The Ministry of Commerce also announced that it will hold an anti-dumping hearing on brandy imported from the EU in mid-July. A spokesman of the Ministry of Commerce said that a hearing will take place on July 18th to discuss an ongoing investigation into claims that European brandy producers are selling to China at below market rates. This as the European Commission's provisional tariffs of up to 37.6% on Chinese electric vehicles take effect from today. Some Chinese EV manufacturers suggested they might raise prices in Europe later this year in response to the curbs. China repeatedly called on the EU to cancel the tariffs and stay at the negotiating table. China has been raising the stakes by opening investigations into European pork imports. Amid the EU's imposing high tariffs on electric vehicles imported from China, leading Chinese EV brand BYD plans to launch a new model in Hong Kong in the second half of the year. One of BYD's factories in Jiangsu province, which caters to overseas markets, has achieved a 95% level of automation to keep pace with surging demand. Sakura Ip visited the production line.
Every day, 1,200 Chinese electric vehicles are ready to hit the road in BYD's factories in Changzhou in Jiangsu province. These vehicles are then shipped to international markets, including India and the Netherlands, through the nearby logistics hub of Lianyungang. In the stamping factory, car body components such as car doors are made by stamping line, which consists of multiple linked stamping presses. This line can automatically change molds to produce different models within just 3 minutes. After stamping, the components undergo welding by 440 robots in a 95% automated production line with positioning accuracy of up to 0.01 millimeters. When the car body is ready, it's time to insert some car parts. During final assembly, some delicate tasks such as installing parts and tightening screws still require manual work assisted by robotic arms. Some of the cars produced in this factory will be sold in Hong Kong. For this batch of cars, the driving seat is on the right-hand side, which is catered to Hong Kong drivers. BYD plans to introduce a new model in Hong Kong in the second half of 2024. As the government actively promotes EV adoption, a customer at the BYD 4S store noted that the vehicle's quiet operation and low running costs make them an appealing choice. A delivery manager for one of BYD's premium models said that the mainstream buying power falls within the 300,000 to 500,000 yuan range, and EV brands are lowering prices to remain competitive, leading some customers to hold off purchases in anticipation of better deals. Starting this Friday, the European Union will impose tariffs on EV imports from China, ranging from 17% to 37%, pending a final decision in 4 months' time. A Chinese economist warned that this tariff could potentially hinder the EU's progress in developing its own domestic EV industry. Zachariah, TVB News, Nanjing.
Iranians began voting on Friday for a candidate to replace the late President Ibrahim Raisi, who was killed in a helicopter crash last month. Reformist presidential candidate Masoud Pezeshkian was swarmed by supporters as he arrived to vote at a polling station near Tehran on Friday. Voters face a choice between the hardline former nuclear negotiator Saeed Jalil and Pezeshkian, a heart surgeon and longtime parliament member allied with moderates and reformists. An initial round of voting on June 28 saw no candidate get over 50% of the vote, forcing a runoff. It also saw the lowest turnout ever for an Iranian election. Back locally, the government earlier said fees at the Thailand tunnel will decrease slightly after they recover its franchise in May next year. Sources said one of the government's suggestions includes reducing the $58 toll to between $20 and $45, according to a time-varying toll scheme. This after members of the community voiced concerns about the tunnel's future owing to frequent traffic congestion on Two Moon Road. And that's the news. Thank you for watching.